I've been sitting with this case for 3 weeks now, and I keep coming back to the same photograph. A parking ticket. Yellowed paper, faded at the edges. July 31st, 1977. A yellow 1970 Ford Galaxy tagged near a fire hydrant in Flatbush, Brooklyn. The address on the registration traced back to an apartment in Yonkers. The officer who wrote that ticket had just tagged a serial killer's car. He had no idea. I drove out to Flatbush last month. The hydrant's still there. The sidewalk's been repaved twice. I stood on that corner in Brooklyn and thought about how close David Berkowitz came to getting away with everything. 45 years. That's how long he's been locked up. And in all that time, I've never found a satisfying answer to the question that brought me here. How does a man terrorize 8 million people for 13 months and then sit in that precinct chair, calm as anything, when officers finally catch him? The document I'm looking at right now says he smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not relief. The smile of a man who'd been waiting to be found. Between July 1976 and August 1977, according to available records, someone hunted in New York City. The weapon, documents indicate a Charter Arms .44 caliber bulldog revolver. The targets, young women, mostly brunettes, often sitting in parked cars with companions. The pattern, late night, working class neighborhoods, no robbery, no sexual assault, just murder. When I first pulled the file, I thought I understood. A disturbed man kills, police catch him, case closed, justice served. But the more I looked, the less satisfied I became. David Berkowitz killed 6 people. Donna Lauria, 18, Christine Freund, 26, Virginia Voskerichian, 20, Valentina Suriani, 18, Alexander Esau, 20, Stacy Moskowitz, 20. He wounded 11 others. For over a year, he operated freely. The city's largest police task force, Operation Omega, employed more than 300 detectives according to available documents. They followed thousands of leads, interviewed suspects, watched neighborhoods. The killings continued. The families I spoke with described a city paralyzed by fear. Women dyed their hair blonde. Couples stopped parking. Disco attendance dropped. The summer of 1977 became 3 things: a blackout, a heat wave, and the Son of Sam. That name came from a letter. Berkowitz didn't just kill. He wrote to the police. He wrote to the press. He taunted them. One detail from those letters won't let me go. The handwriting analysis showed the author could switch hands comfortably, likely ambidextrous. Berkowitz is right-handed. Nobody could explain this to me. Not the families, not the investigators I tracked down. The forensic reports note the discrepancy. Then they move on. I can't move on. According to police reports, the first shooting happens on July 29, 1976. Donna Lauria and her friend Jody Valenti sit in a parked car outside Donna's apartment building in the Bronx. Documents indicate 1:10 a.m. They've just come from a disco. A man approaches with a paper bag. He pulls a gun, fires 5 times. Donna dies instantly. Jody survives with a wound to her thigh. No witnesses get a clear look. No motive emerges. The case goes cold. 3 months later. Records show October 23rd. Carl Denaro sits in a parked car with his friend Rosemary Keenan in Queens. A bullet shatters the rear window. Denaro takes a round to the head. He survives, loses part of his skull. Police don't connect it to the Lauria shooting. Different borough, different gun assessment initially. According to available reports, November 27th, Donna DeMasi and Joanne Lomino sit on Joanne's porch in Queens. A man approaches, asks for directions, then opens fire. Both survive. Joanne is paralyzed for life. Still no connection. Documents indicate January 30th, 1977. Christine Freund and her fiancé John Deal sit in their car in Queens after seeing a movie. Someone fires through the passenger window. Christine dies hours later. John, untouched, remembers nothing useful. The task force forms. 4 shootings. Same caliber. Same pattern. Someone is hunting, and now the city knows it. I drove to the location where Christine Freund died. A quiet residential street, trees, small yards, the kind of place where nothing ever happens. I sat in my car for an hour trying to understand how a killer selects targets. Random? Something about these spots. The police asked the same questions. They never found an answer. What makes someone park outside a stranger's car and wait for the perfect moment? According to records, March 8, 1977, Virginia Voskerichian, a Columbia University student, walks home through Forest Hills, Queens. A man approaches her on the sidewalk. She raises her books to shield herself. He fires once through them, killing her instantly. The first shooting outside a vehicle. The pattern shifts. The fear spreads. Reports indicate April 17th. Valentina Suriani and Alexander Esau park in the Bronx. Both die. This time, the shooter leaves something behind. A letter. Documents show it was addressed to Captain Joseph Borelli. I've read this letter a dozen times. Something doesn't add up. The writer calls himself the Son of Sam, claims his neighbor's dog commands him to kill. The tone shifts between childlike rambling and calculated taunting. The spelling errors seem deliberate. And then there's that handwriting. The letter creates a media firestorm. Jimmy Breslin at the Daily News receives his own in May. He publishes it. The Son of Sam becomes a household name. Women across the city change their appearance. The killer has achieved something beyond murder. He's become a character in the city's nightmares. How does a city of 8 million people protect itself when the threat is random? June 26th, Judy Placido and Sal Lupo survive gunshots in Queens. July 31st, Stacy Moskowitz and Bobby Violante park in Brooklyn, a new borough, breaking the pattern entirely. Stacy dies. Bobby loses his left eye. The last shooting. And the break doesn't come from forensics or witness testimony. It comes from a parking ticket. A woman named Cecilia Davis walks her dog near the crime scene that night. She sees police ticketing cars near a fire hydrant. One driver gives her an odd look as he walks past, and she notices he's carrying something. Later, she describes him to police. Detectives pull the tickets written that night. One belongs to David Berkowitz. Address: 35 Pine Street, Yonkers. I drove to that address. The building's been renovated since, but the layout remains the same. A small apartment complex. Berkowitz lived there alone. His neighbors didn't know him well. They described him as quiet, helpful even. Why does a man who operates in shadows suddenly crave an audience? I thought I had the shape of this. A disturbed loner. Delusions about a demon dog. Captured through a mundane traffic violation. And then I found the arson files. Between 1974 and 1977, New York City experienced a wave of suspicious fires. Thousands, concentrated in certain neighborhoods. After his arrest, Berkowitz confessed to setting more than 2,000 of them. More than 2,000 fires. One man. Not speculation, not rumor. Police found 3 stenographers' notebooks, detailed records of every fire he set. Most Son of Sam documentaries don't mention this. The popular narrative focuses on the shootings, the letters, the dog. But the man who became the son of Sam started as something else entirely. An arsonist, a watcher, someone who liked to see things burn. The timeline matters. Berkowitz didn't wake up one day and decide to kill. He escalated for years, hundreds of fires. Then the stabbing buried in the records. A woman attacked on Christmas Eve, 1975, 6 months before the first shooting. She survived. Police never publicly linked the case to Berkowitz until after his arrest. Here's what I couldn't find anywhere, and that absence is its own answer. No one has ever fully explained the gap between Berkowitz's first arson and his first murder. Thousands of fires over years. Then, suddenly, shooting strangers. What changed? The demon dog story, the one Berkowitz told police, the one that became his public identity, he later admitted fabricating it. Made it up, he said, to build an insanity defense. So what drove him? I've been over this 100 times. David Berkowitz was not the disorganized madman the media portrayed. He held a steady job. He served honorably in the army. He functioned in society while simultaneously terrorizing it. The letters weren't the ravings of a lunatic. They were performances, calculated to create a specific effect. Police looked for someone who acted crazy. They found a man who acted normal. Records show Berkowitz was adopted as an infant. He struggled with that knowledge. His birth mother had given him up. His adoptive mother died when he was 14. He described feeling like an outsider, rejected, fundamentally unwanted. I can't prove this, but I can't ignore it either. The victims were predominantly young couples, people connected, people loved. Berkowitz targeted what he believed he could never have. One detail stands out. During his confession, Berkowitz demonstrated how he held the gun, at arm's length, turning his head away, barely looking at his targets. He wasn't savoring the violence. He was executing a compulsion. There's a difference. Some investigators have suggested Berkowitz didn't act alone. The son of Sam letters use plural pronouns in places. We, us. Berkowitz has occasionally hinted at accomplices, then retracted. The conspiracy theory never gained official traction. I looked into it, spoke with a retired detective from the task force. He told me there were always loose threads, shell casings that didn't match, witness descriptions that conflicted. But with Berkowitz in custody and confessing, the pressure to close the case was enormous. What does a serial killer think about the morning he wakes up free for the last time? July 31st, 1977. Berkowitz leaves the Brooklyn crime scene. His car has a ticket on the windshield, a hydrant violation, $7. He knows detectives may pull those records. He goes home to Yonkers anyway. He waits. 10 days later, on August 10th, detectives knock on his door. He doesn't run. He says, "Well, you got me." The arresting officer described his demeanor as calm, almost relieved. Berkowitz walked to the patrol car, sat in the back seat, and smiled. That smile, I keep returning to it. Relief that the chase was over? Pride in his notoriety? Or something else? The satisfaction of completing a narrative he'd been constructing for himself. I've read his parole hearing transcripts. He's eligible every 2 years, denied every time. In recent hearings, he's stated he doesn't want release. He believes he belongs in prison. The son of Sam sits in Shawangunk Correctional Facility. He's found religion. He's renounced his crimes. He's 72 years old. 45 years. That's how long the families have lived with what he did. I went back to Flatbush one more time before I finished this investigation. That same block in Brooklyn. The hydrant still there. The building across the street where Stacy Moskowitz's car was parked. Gone now. A different structure stands in its place. 45 years ago, a parking enforcement officer wrote a ticket that solved the case. He didn't know it, couldn't have known. He was just doing his job on a summer night while somewhere in the city, a young woman was dying. David Berkowitz walked past Cecilia Davis with a gun in his hand, and she thought something was off. Oh, it's just a feeling. She called the police anyway. I don't have a verdict on what created the Son of Sam. Not sure anyone does. The demon dog was a lie. The psychological profiles contradict each other. The man himself offers different explanations depending on the decade. What I know, for 13 months, someone hunted freely in a city of 8 million. Young people died in parked cars, on porches, walking home. The killer wrote letters. The media gave him a name. And in the end, it came down to a parking ticket and a woman walking her dog. I've sat with this case for weeks now, and the question I carry isn't about Berkowitz. It's about everyone else. How many times have we walked past something wrong, someone wrong, and felt that small alarm, that instinct, and kept walking? Cecilia Davis didn't keep walking. She called. Most of us keep walking. I'm not sure what that says about survival, about chance, about the thin membrane between ordinary nights and the worst night of someone's life. I close the file on David Berkowitz, but I don't close the question. What does it take to stop walking?